For my environmental science research project, I chose to research the Enbridge oil pipeline in Wisconsin. So a little background history and a little bit of statistical information for you. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the United States consumes more energy in petroleum than in any other energy source available, which is shown in some statistics that they took from 2016. So in 2016, Americans consumed about 19.7 million barrels of petroleum per day, which is about 37% of all of the energy consumed in the United States. And the oil transportation aspect of that accounts for 28% of the United States greenhouse gas emission, which is what makes it such a major contribution to climate change, and it's second highest behind electricity. The greenhouse gas emission distribution for electricity is 33%, and then behind that there is commercial and residential at 11%, industry at 20%, and agriculture at 8%. Enbridge and Enbridge Energy own and operate a pipeline system that transports crude oil to serve refineries in the Midwestern states. And Enbridge has been operating in Wisconsin since 1949. The very first pipeline that they constructed was done in 1950, and this was actually the very first pipeline that linked Canada to the U.S. energy markets at that time. This pipeline is a 1,098-mile long pipeline that carries NGL and light crude oil from Edmonton, Alberta to Superior, Wisconsin. So just kind of to figure out exactly what this pipeline does and how it's constructed, I think it's important to understand what goes into creating a pipeline. So the first step into building a pipeline is the planning process, and during this process, Enbridge employees participate in community engagement through roundtable discussions with municipalities and landowners. They do presentations from subject matter experts and community open houses, and they also have personal interactions around the community. They then consult with groups for training and employment so that they can create meaningful opportunities for people in the area. And Enbridge begins to plan their property usage using pre-existing utilities wherever possible in order to minimize the environmental footprint that they may have, and also in order to comply with the environmental permits and regulations that are required. The next step after that is they work with regulatory agencies to build environmental evaluations into the construction planning. Before moving to the next step, the last thing they do is a project application, which is submitted to the appropriate agencies and to initiate a review process for approval for this pipeline. After that's been approved, they start taking field surveys and staking. So field surveys are conducted along the proposed right-of-way in order to for the company to understand the environmental development and local issues that may occur before finalizing the pipeline route. And once that's all discussed and the final route is decided, the route location is marked with stakes so the team knows exactly the route for construction. And at this time, the construction crews will come in and clear or salvage any trees wherever necessary along the ROW, which is the right-of-way area. And then they will, while the construction's underway, they will strip and store the soil that is removed, and they do that very carefully to prevent any topsoil or subsoil mixture. And once the topsoil has been properly stripped and stored, the subsoil is graded to ensure the safe pipeline installation. And then they also, once that prep work is done, the next step is for the construction crew to restake the center of the trench and place the pipes in sections along the right-of-way. And once the pipes have been properly sectioned, the crews bend the sections of the pipe to match the engineered specifications and also to follow the land area. And then after bending is completed, the pipe is welded into sections, and then after it's welded into larger sections, it's put together into one big section. And then it's coated with a robust corrosion inhibitor, and after this, the pipe then the pipeline trench is dug out so that the pipe can be lowered into the trench, and they do that by using cranes. And any pipeline that has to go through water crossings is done so under something that they call deploying horizontal directional drilling technology, and that is so that the pipelines can lay below the rivers or crossings without any issues. Once that is done, then they carefully backfill the trench and compact it with subsoil once the pipeline is properly placed. Before allowing the pipeline to be used, they actually have to undergo hydrostatic testing, which is where each section of the pipeline is filled with water and exposed to extreme pressure to ensure the strength of the pipeline and that the welds are meeting the standards to hold the oil. And after the pipeline has passed the hydrostatic testing, then it's time for the land to be cleaned up and restored to its original conditions. And this task is completed by replacing the topsoil and reseeding the grass area, as long as planting new trees wherever possible from whatever they took down from in order to place the pipeline. And then once that is all completed, the pipeline is ready and to go and can operate for a very long time. So some Wisconsin benefits. So local enbridge operations continue to contribute more than $28 million in annual property taxes just to the state of Wisconsin alone. And also with recent expansion projects that have begun, they've actually created over 500 construction jobs for either employees or contractors or just people in Wisconsin. And today, enbridge operations have reached 1,552 miles of liquid pipelines in Wisconsin alone. The enbridge system, though, runs throughout the entire U.S. and it's able to transport 2.8 million barrels of oil per day. So some things that they're looking into for future pipeline reconstructions. As of March 2016, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources began the next phases of permitting 2 new pipelines in Wisconsin through the enbridge pipeline. And these pipelines were the Line 3 replacement pipeline, and then the second one was the sandpaper pipeline that would enter Wisconsin through Minnesota and then would end at the enbridge terminal in Superior. But as of December in 2016, the enbridge actually withdrew their permit applications for the Wisconsin portion of the proposed sandpaper pipeline. Instead, they just still plan to move forward with the replacement of the Line 3 pipeline in 2017. The Line 3 pipeline project was proposed to replace the 1,031-mile-long pipeline that moves from Hardisty, Alberta to Superior, Wisconsin. And this is a pipeline that carries a different variety of crude oil. Also, Enbridge Energy has recently proposed in expanding an entire tar sand network, which is actually quite close to us. They're looking at doing that in the Great Lakes region. And this proposal is known as the Keystone XL Tar Sands Pipeline. If it is permitted, then the Keystone Pipeline will pump 800,000 barrels of oil per day. With this whole pipeline situation, there also comes spills, so spills that have occurred through Enbridge. Enbridge has had 800 pipeline spills since 1999, which has spewed 6.8 million gallons of oil into our environment. In 2010, an Enbridge pipeline ruptured and spilling over 1 million gallons of tar sand oil into a wetland, which then leaked into the Kalamazoo River. Due to heavy rains at this time, the oil actually traveled for 35 miles downstream. In an article written by Nowakowski for the Sierra Club, the National Transportation Board stated that for more than 17 hours, Enbridge failed to follow their own shutdown procedures, and part of this issue resulted in a lot of environmental damage. And because of this disaster, the wetlands area in the area, the Kalamazoo River and the Talmadge Creek, all are experiencing much environmental damage from the disaster, and it probably will never be the same again. The spill may have happened 7 years ago, but Enbridge is still funding for the cleanup from it, which they estimate will exceed $1 billion by the time the total cleanup is finished. An example, just another spill that occurred from Enbridge Pipeline is a smaller one. It happened in Grand Marsh, Adams County in 2012. The Wisconsin State Journal had an article about how when the pipeline ruptured, it spilled about 50,000 gallons of oil, and it ended up contaminating 17 tons of soil in our area. So it's kind of a large number, and that's just 2 out of the 800 spills that have occurred since 1999. But with every great invention and everything that you could create, there is always unforeseen challenges that you're faced with. And with every future project, whether it's through Enbridge or pipelines through someone else, there's going to be setbacks that will affect our environment. Everything affects our environment in some way. But Enbridge generates 1.6 gigawatts of renewable energy across North America while operating the world's largest and longest crude oil pipeline system, which transport up to 2.8 million barrels of oil per day. And Enbridge's energy infrastructure has helped fuel the quality of life in Wisconsin for over 65 years. Their pipelines deliver products that heat our homes and businesses, fuel our vehicles, and actually power industry all across the state and across America. While this may be a very controversial topic to many, Enbridge is actually meeting North Americans' energy demands through the use of natural gas and crude oil, which is necessary for daily life in all of America. So between the pipeline repairs and the future pipeline projects, I don't foresee these pipelines decreasing or disappearing. because they are meeting North America's energy demands through what they are doing. It's obviously a necessity, and they are looking at more ways to find more environmentally safe ways, but as of right now, this is kind of where it's going, and it's not disappearing or decreasing. So that's just a little bit of information on Enbridge and what they do and what they are, especially since it's affecting Wisconsin as well as it affects the rest of North America. So, thank you.